If someone had told me that a house party would completely flip my idea of who I was, what I wanted, I'd have laughed it off. I wasn't one for parties, let alone moments that were supposed to change your life. But that's exactly what happened. One reckless night, at my best friend Darren's party, something happened that I can't forget. Not because it was wild, but because it made me feel something I never expected. It was the last weekend of summer break, right before everyone returned to campus. Darren was famous to throw what he called his end of freedom party, a chaotic mix of high school nostalgia, college arrogance, and enough cheap beer to dissolve any good decision-making skills. I wasn't even going to go. I had a shift the next morning, and crowds weren't my thing. But Darren had begged. "You never do anything, Lucas," he said. "Come, let people see you're alive before you disappear into your books again." So I went. Hoodie, jeans, low expectations. When I got there, the house was already pulsing with bass and neon lighting. The kind of energy that makes you feel both out of place and tempted to stay. Darren greeted me with a beer and a slap on the back. "Told you you'd come." "I'm not staying long." I warned. Yeah, he smirked. "Just don't vanish before midnight. There's someone I want you to meet." I rolled my eyes, assuming he meant another blind date attempt. Darren had been trying to set me up since junior year. His heart was in the right place, but his taste? Questionable. I wandered through the house, trying not to make eye contact with anyone too enthusiastic. There were couples grinding in the living room, friends yelling over each other in the kitchen. Someone passed out on the stairs. The usual. And then I saw him, leaning against a sliding glass door, solo cup in hand, wearing a gray Henley shirt that clung a little too well to his frame. He wasn't looking at anyone, just quietly observing, like I was. His hair was slightly curled at the ends, and his expression was unreadable, relaxed, maybe even bored. But his eyes, God, there was something about the way they moved around the room. Sharp, like he noticed everything. I looked away before he could catch me staring. Too late. He saw, and he smiled. A small, crooked, devastating smile. I turned toward the kitchen, trying to distract myself with chips I didn't want and soda that was mostly flat. I told myself it was just a look. Guys smiled at parties all the time. I was halfway through convincing myself when Darren appeared beside me. "Lucas," he said, grinning like a man with a secret. "Meet Shane." I turned and nearly choked. It was him, the guy by the door. Up close. He looked older than I expected. Maybe 22 or 23. Calm, confident, but not cocky. His eyes met mine and stayed there. "Hey," he said, offering his hand. I shook it. "Hi." Darren was already walking away. "You two enjoy. Don't be weird." Shane raised an eyebrow. "Too late for that?" I laughed, nervous. "Sorry, I'm not really a party person." "Me neither," he said. "I almost didn't come." "Why did you?" He shrugged. "Curiosity. I heard Darren's parties were legendary." I smiled. Legendary might be a stretch, but unpredictable? That's accurate. There was a pause. Then he said, "So, Lucas, what do you do when you're not being dragged to house parties?" I don't remember everything we talked about. Just that time passed fast. Too fast. 1 second we were awkwardly sipping drinks, and the next we were sitting outside on the back steps, knees brushing accidentally, laughing about how Darren once set a toaster on fire trying to make garlic bread. He listened when I talked, like really listened. No fake nodding or looking over my shoulder. And when he spoke, he didn't try to impress me. He was just honest. At one point, I asked him what he did. "I bartend," he said, "and I write, mostly poetry." I raised an eyebrow. "Seriously?" "Seriously. You don't look like a poet." He grinned. "What does a poet look like?" I paused. "I guess not like you." He leaned in slightly, voice softer. "What do I look like then?" I swallowed. Someone who shouldn't be talking to me this much. "Why not?" "Because I don't trust guys who smile like that." He laughed. "Fair." The night grew colder. Someone in the house yelled. That beer pong was getting heated. Someone else sang off-key. But out there with him, the chaos felt far away. And then it happened. Shane turned toward me just a little and asked, "Have you ever kissed a guy at a party before?" I stared at him. My heart thudded. No. He didn't move closer. Didn't push. He just looked at me, waiting. I didn't answer with words. I leaned in, just a little, and he met me there. The kiss wasn't loud or messy or dramatic. It was quiet, gentle, like asking a question and hearing the answer in a breath. When we pulled back, I didn't open my eyes right away. And when I did, he was still there, watching me, softly. I wanted to say something, joke about it, make it lighter than it felt. But I couldn't, because the truth was, I didn't feel light. I felt cracked open, like something in me had just shifted, and I wasn't ready for what that meant. He seemed to sense it. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah, just surprised." He tilted his head. "In a good way?" I hesitated, then whispered, "Yeah." And it wasn't just a kiss. It was a realization that maybe I wasn't who I thought I was. That maybe, under the layers of routine and hesitation, I was someone who could fall deeply for another guy. And maybe I already had. And before I end this part, I want to say something directly to you watching or listening. I'm trying to reach my first 1,000 subscribers. Once we hit that milestone, I'll reveal something really personal. Something I've never said out loud before. Your one click could help make that happen. Please subscribe, share this with someone, and leave a comment if this story hit you. Together, we can grow something real here. I woke up the next morning with sunlight hitting my face and a pit in my stomach. Not the hangover kind. I hadn't drunk that much. This was something different, tighter, deeper, like my entire world had shifted an inch while I was asleep. The kiss. Shane. His hand on my knee. The way he had looked at me after, like he saw right through me but didn't flinch. It wasn't like I hadn't thought about guys before. I had, quietly, from a distance, but I'd always been too good at talking myself out of it. Too good at staying in the space between wondering and doing anything about it. But I crossed that line last night. No excuses. No pretending. And now, I didn't know what came next. Darren called around noon. "Dude, you ghosted last night." I rubbed my eyes. "Did I?" "You vanished. I assumed you dipped early until Casey told me you were out back with Shane for, like, an hour." My chest tightened. "Yeah, we talked." Darren snorted. "Talked?" "Lucas, my man, you were not just talking. He looked at you like you were dessert." I tried to deflect. "It wasn't like that. Bro, I introduced you two for a reason. I knew you'd click." I sat up. "You knew?" "Come on. You think I've been your best friend this long and didn't notice the way you look at certain guys?" I froze. He laughed. "Relax. I didn't say anything, 'cause it's not my business until you say it is. But yeah, Shane's good people. I wouldn't have thrown him at you otherwise." I couldn't tell if I wanted to hug Darren or hang up. He went on, "You gonna see him again?" I didn't know how to answer that. "I don't know," I said. "It was just a kiss. I think." "Lucas. He asked for your number before he left." My heart skipped. "He did?" "Yeah, I gave it to him." Of course Darren did. I wanted to be mad, but mostly I was terrified, because now I had to decide whether last night was an accident or the beginning of something. Shane texted later that day. "Hey, last night was nice. Hope you're not freaking out. If you are, that's okay. But I meant what I said. I like being around you. No pressure. Just wanted you to know." I stared at the screen for a long time. I typed 3 different responses. Deleted all of them. Finally, I sent, "Hey, yeah, I liked it too. Still figuring some stuff out. But I'm glad we met." He replied almost instantly. "Same. No rush. We can just hang out. No expectations." That last sentence hit me harder than it should have. No expectations. Because expectations were what always scared me. What if I liked him more than he liked me? What if people found out and treated me differently? What if I let myself feel something and it wasn't real? A few days later, we met up at a quiet coffee shop near campus. Not a date, At least, that's what I told myself. But when he smiled as I walked in, stood to greet me, and pulled out a chair, it felt like a date. We talked for hours. About stupid things. Favorite movies. Worst high school memories. The time he accidentally lit his hoodie on fire during a camping trip. And we talked about harder things, too. He told me he'd known since he was 16. That coming out hadn't been easy. That not everyone had stayed in his life. I told him I hadn't figured anything out yet. He didn't judge. He just nodded and said, "You don't owe anyone a timeline." And that sentence, it stayed with me. I didn't tell anyone else about Shane for a while. Not because I was ashamed, but because it still felt fragile. Like if I said out loud, it might break under the weight of everyone else's opinions. But people noticed anyway. Like Casey. She cornered me at a bookstore a week later, arms full of romance novels. "You've been smiley lately," she said, eyeing me. "Have I?" And distracted. I'm always distracted. "Not like this. You're seeing someone." I said nothing. She smirked. "It's the guy from the party, isn't it? The hot one with the jawline. That could cut glass." I laughed to spite myself. "You're not wrong," I said. Her eyes widened. "Wait, really. I don't know what it is yet. But, yeah, we kissed. And we've been talking." She grabbed my arm. "Lucas, I'm so happy for you." I blinked. "Really? Of course. You've been hiding from your own heart for years. It's about time you let someone in." That night, Shane came over. We didn't do much. Just watched bad movies, made popcorn, and argued about plot holes. But at one point, during a quiet moment, he looked at me and said, "Are you scared?" I didn't pretend not to know what he meant. "Yeah," I said, "terrified." "Of what?" I thought for a moment. Of wanting something I can't explain. Of not being enough. Of losing parts of myself, if I let this be real. He reached over and gently took my hand. "You're not losing anything, Lucas. You're just discovering more of what was already there." And for the first time, I let myself believe he might be right. We didn't kiss that night. But something about the way he looked at me as he left, the way he lingered by the door, like he wasn't ready to go, that felt more intimate than anything physical. I stood there for a long time after he left, my heart full and confused and hopeful all at once. Something was happening. And for once, I wasn't running from it. I was walking straight into it. The weirdest part wasn't the kiss, or the way I kept replaying it in my mind every night before falling asleep. It was how normal everything between us still felt. Like we hadn't crossed some massive line. Like I hadn't spent the last 2 years pretending I wasn't curious, confused, scared. It had been a week since Shane came over. Since he held my hand on the couch and told me I wasn't losing anything, just discovering. That sentence kept echoing in my head, like some kind of quiet promise. He texted me every morning now. Simple things. "Hope your coffee's good. Don't let your boss ruin your vibe. Tell your cat I said hi." I didn't have a cat. I had a plant. Dying, honestly. But he said I gave off cat owner energy. One afternoon, he asked if I wanted to meet him after his shift at the bar. I said yes before I even thought it through. I hadn't been to the bar before. It was tucked behind a row of shops downtown, dim but cozy. The kind of place that had mismatched chairs and a jukebox that mostly played indie covers of 80 songs. He was behind the counter when I walked in, hair damp with sweat, sleeves rolled to his elbows. His face lit up when he saw me. I hadn't realized how badly I needed someone to look at me that way. He waved to the guy beside him, grabbed 2 waters, and nodded toward a small table near the back. We sat. "You good?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah, just watching you work was kind of hot." He raised an eyebrow. "That's so." I laughed, embarrassed. "Sorry, that was a weird thing to say." "No, I liked it." He leaned back, looking at me the way he always did, like he was reading something between my words. Not judging, just noticing. I reached for my drink. "You're really good with people." He shrugged. "Comes with the job." "No, I mean you're present. Like, when you talk to someone, they feel seen." He tilted his head. "Is that how you feel when I talk to you?" I froze for a second, then nodded. "Yeah, that's exactly how I feel." He didn't smile. Not right away. Just reached over, slowly, and ran his thumb across my knuckles. You do that for me too, Lucas. You make me feel like I don't have to try so hard. I swallowed. Try hard for what? To be enough. We walked along the river after that, just talking, occasionally bumping shoulders. The city lights reflected in the water, soft and wobbly. At one point, he stopped and looked at me. Can I ask you something? Yeah. Do you feel weird being with me? That hit me harder than I expected. Weird how? I don't know. Like, uncomfortable. Not because of me, but because of what it means, what people might think. I looked at the ground, then back at him. I feel scared, I admitted, but not because I don't like you. I just don't know how to be this version of me in front of other people. He nodded. I get that. It's like I've always been in control of how people see me. Straight, quiet, unremarkable. And now I feel like I'm walking around with this spotlight on me. He stepped closer. Can I tell you something? Please. When I first came out, I thought it would feel like losing a piece of myself. But it wasn't that. It was like I finally gave all the quiet parts of me permission to breathe. I looked at him, really looked at him. Is that what I'm doing now? He smiled. I think so. A couple of nights later, Darren threw another small hangout. Not a party, just drinks and games. He invited Shane too. I hadn't seen Shane around my friends before. I didn't know how he'd fit in. He walked in wearing that same crooked smile, gave me a small nod, and immediately charmed everyone in the room. Even Casey leaned in and whispered, "Okay, I get now." We sat close on the couch, not touching, but just enough that it felt like something. People teased us. New couple energy. One guy joked, "You two gonna make out mid-charades?" Another laughed. I wanted to crawl into the couch, but Shane just smiled and shrugged. "Don't tempt us." Everyone laughed, and just like that, it didn't feel so heavy anymore. Later, as the night wound down, I walked Shane to the door. "Thanks for coming," I said. "Thanks for letting me." He hesitated. "Can I kiss you?" he asked. I looked around. The hallway was empty. The lights were low. My friends were inside, probably too tipsy to notice anything now. Still, my chest clenched. But I didn't want to say no. So I nodded. He kissed me. Soft. No rush. Just him and me and the kind of stillness that makes you forget everything else exists. When we pulled back, he whispered, "You don't have to rush, Lucas." But I'm not going anywhere. And for once, I believed him. I watched him walk down the steps and disappear into the night. Then I stood there for a long time. Heart full, hands still tingling. Somewhere inside me, a wall I hadn't even named was finally starting to fall. The next morning, I did something I never thought I would. I changed my phone lock screen. It was a small thing. Dumb, even, but it mattered. The photo was blurry. Taken when Shane wasn't looking mid-laugh, at a ramen spot we stopped at late the night before. His hair was a mess and his mouth was open mid-joke, but there was this peace in his face, like he wasn't holding anything back. That was the version of him I wanted to carry with me, not because I needed to show the world, but because I needed to remind myself what it felt like to be seen by someone like that, and maybe to start believing I could be someone who deserved that kind of love. But of course, life doesn't just hand you happiness without asking for something in return. By midweek, whispers had started on campus. Nothing aggressive, just knowing glances, small shifts in tone. A few classmates acting like they knew something I didn't. It wasn't hard to guess how it had spread. Someone at Darren's hangout must have mentioned the kiss. Or maybe one of the photos someone snapped got passed around. I told myself it didn't matter, that it wasn't their business. But it still messed with me. In my creative writing seminar, a guy who always sat beside me suddenly switched seats across the room. In the gym, two dudes I used to spot for barely nodded. Even Darren noticed. "You good?" he asked as we walked across the quad after class. "I'm fine," I said too quickly. He didn't buy it. "You don't seem fine." I stopped. "People are talking. So let them." "You don't get it," I said. It's different when you're still figuring yourself out, and suddenly everyone's forming opinions for you. Darren nodded slowly. Okay, then what do you need? I paused. Space, I think. I need space to be confused without feeling like I owe anyone answers. Darren clapped a hand on my shoulder. Then take your space. But don't push away the people who actually care. That night, I didn't answer Shane's text right away. I saw the typing dots appear, then disappear, then return again. Finally, everything okay? You've been quiet. I stared at the message. Typing? Yeah, just feeling off. It's not you, just stuff. A few seconds later. I'm here when you're ready. I mean that? No pressure. Just don't shut me out. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't want to, but because part of me was terrified of dragging him into my confusion. A couple days passed. I avoided campus when I could, skipped the gym, ignored group chats. It wasn't Shane I was hiding from. It was a version of myself I wasn't sure how to carry in public. But silence has a way of echoing louder than noise. And one evening, just as I was walking back from the store, I saw him, Shane, sitting on the front steps of my apartment building, a small paper bag beside him, hoodie zipped up, hands in his lap. He looked up and smiled, soft. Hey! I froze. How'd you know where I live? He raised his hands. Darren, I swear I didn't stalk you. I almost laughed. Okay, that checks out. He stood, brushing his hands on his jeans. I brought you your favorite donuts. Or at least the ones you claimed were underrated during our 3-hour food rant. He held out the bag. I took it. The warmth of the bag pressed into my fingers like an apology. I know you're going through stuff, he said, and I'm not here to demand answers. But I missed you, and I don't want to be another thing that makes this harder. I looked at him, noticed the way his voice cracked slightly at the end, the way his eyes didn't demand anything, just hoped. I'm scared, I admitted. I know, and I hate that people might see me differently now. They might, he said, but the right ones won't. And eventually, you'll stop caring about the rest. We stood there in the fading sunlight, quiet. Then I said, do you want to come in? He smiled. Yeah, I'd like that. We didn't do much that night. Just sat on my bed, legs crossed, sharing donuts and sipping warm soda. At some point, he reached over and gently touched my cheek. You're still you know, he whispered. Even if it feels like the world's spinning faster now. You're still Lucas. Thoughtful, stubborn, secretly hilarious. And I'm still here for you. I looked at him, my chest tight. I want this, I said. I do. I'm just slow at it. He leaned in and kissed my forehead. We got time. Later that night, as he left, I walked him to the door. He looked at me, hands in his pockets. You're allowed to be scared, he said. But don't let fear be the only voice in the room. Then he stepped back into the dark, down the stairs, into the world that didn't stop for anyone's confusion. And for the first time in days, I didn't feel heavy. I felt brave, still unsure, still afraid, but brave enough to keep choosing him. And maybe, slowly, choosing myself too. I used to think coming out was a single moment, one sentence, one deep breath, one heart-pounding confession that flipped a switch and made everything brighter. But I've learned it doesn't work like that. It's not a moment. It's a series of choices. Some quiet, some loud, some terrifying, and some kind of beautiful. It was Darren's birthday. He was throwing a rooftop dinner, just a few close friends, string lights, music low enough for conversation. I almost didn't go. Even though things between me and Shane had been good, better than good, I still wasn't sure I could handle being seen. But he looked at me that morning, while we were brushing our teeth side by side, and said, you don't have to do anything you're not ready for. But if you're waiting to feel brave before you live your life, you might wait forever. I stared at my reflection, toothbrush still in my mouth, and nodded. That night, I wore a navy button-down Shane, one that made my eyes look dangerously crushable. He laughed when he saw me. Trying to kill me? Try to keep your attention. I joked. You already have it. The rooftop was buzzing with warmth when we arrived. Darren spotted me instantly and gave me a two-arm hug that squeezed the air out of my lungs. "You made it," he grinned. I was this close to sending a search party. Shane stayed close but casual. Just another guest, smiling politely, never assuming space that wasn't offered. That was the thing about him. He never pushed. He just showed up, again and again, until the fear inside me had no choice but to step aside. We talked, laughed, ate too much cake. I even let myself smile, without worrying if it looked too much around him. But it was the end of the night, when people were starting to pack up, that something shifted. Darren stood up, raised a plastic cup, and shouted, "One last toast before we all go back to pretending we're not secretly falling apart." Everyone laughed. "To growth," he said, "to real friends, and to whatever the hell love is these days." A few people clinked glasses. Someone cheered, and I stood up. I didn't even plan to. My body moved before my fear could stop it. Everyone looked at me. "Can I say something?" I asked. Darren gave me a thumbs up. "Floor's yours, Professor Lucas." I swallowed. "My name's Lucas. I guess most of you know that." Nervous laughter. "But what some of you might not know is I've spent most of my life trying to be invisible, quiet, controlled, safe, and in doing that, I forgot how to be honest." I felt my throat tighten. Shane's eyes were on me, steady and calm. But recently, I met someone who saw through all that, someone who didn't ask me to be more or less just me, a beat. And I realized that sometimes the scariest thing you can do isn't falling in love. It's letting people see that you have. There was a hush, and then I turned, took a slow, deliberate step toward Shane, and held out my hand. He took it, smiling like I was the only person on that rooftop. "This is Shane," I said, "and he makes me feel more myself than I ever thought possible." A few people clapped. Some cheered. Darren let out a dramatic "finally." Shane pulled me in gently and kissed me, soft and sure. Not hidden, not rushed. And for the first time, it wasn't terrifying. It was freeing. Afterward, we sat alone while people trickled out, the string lights swaying in the wind above us. "I'm proud of you," Shane whispered. I leaned against his shoulder. "I think, for the first time, I'm proud of me too." We didn't move in together right away. There were still things to figure out. School, work, families. But we kept choosing each other. And we kept showing up. Sometimes I still feel the fear. When someone stares too long. When I hear a joke that's not really a joke. When I catch myself caring too deeply what people think. But then I remember the way Shane looked at me on that rooftop. Like I was already enough. Like I didn't need to explain myself to exist. And maybe that's what love really is. Not the loud moments. Not even the kiss at the party. But the quiet decision to be seen and still stay.